All right, everybody. If I can get your attention for just a little bit. Thanks. So, I'm not going to preach a sermon this morning, but I am going to try and share my heart with you a little bit. And we'll go from there. So, when we planted Capital Vineyard Church 5 years ago, it was a pretty whirlwind time in our lives. Pastor Joe at Richmond presented the idea of us moving up here in May, to which the fun story is he said, hey, here's what's going on with the church in Frankfurt. He said it's a great opportunity for somebody to step up there and take that on. And I said, yeah, that is a great opportunity for somebody else. Good. Hope they take it. So we immediately said, you know what, we'll actually pray about this thing and think about it. And so in a couple of weeks, we had decided, you know what, I think the Lord is presenting an opportunity here for us, and maybe we should go. And so we went. And so that idea was presented to us in May. And by July, we had sold our house in Richmond and bought a new house in Lawrenceburg. It happened like that. And all of a sudden, I was a pastor of a small group of people who had been through a lot. And I didn't know what I was doing. And it's arguable whether I still know what I'm doing or ever knew what I was doing. We can talk about that all day long, right? But we decided this is where the Lord was bringing us, and I'm really grateful that He has, because I'm not the same person that I was when we moved up here. We, our family, are not the same people. I mean, look at these boys. Good grief. I think more than just physical growth, obviously. I think our growth is largely due to you people and our relationships with you that we built, the friendships that we've had, enjoyed during this time. Some of y'all were there that first day, and some of y'all have come along the way, and I'm grateful for all of it. You've changed our lives. You've influenced our relationship with the Lord, and through that, He has continued to grow and change us in ways that I really can't clearly explain, but are very tangible and are very significant. Primarily, that change has taken the form of this gospel of grace and righteousness and relationship that we have in Christ, and that I can't seem to get over, and I don't think I will ever get over, because I believe it's the real deal. It's the gospel, and so I'm grateful for that, and I hope you could say the same about our influence with y'all. I believe at its core, in all kinds of different forms, that's what church is. It's living together, supporting one another, encouraging one another, sharing with one another. That's what it boils down to in its purest form. And that can take all kinds of different forms. But I think that's what it boils down to. And I believe that Capital Vineyard has been a place where people who don't belong other places have belonged. And I think that's because the purpose of our gathering, at least in the last couple of years, has not been to get people to act right. The purpose of our gathering is to be together celebrating what God has done in us and for us and through us. And to celebrate that even though it doesn't always look like it, that through the death and the resurrection of Jesus, we've been made right. And so we celebrate that. That's what we're celebrating as we gather together. Celebrating that God has actually done a tangible work within the saints, and we can expect that as we walk with Him, He'll bear the fruit of His Spirit within us. That's what we're trusting, bottom line. And so because of that, as we gather together, we bear with one another, we love one another, we encourage one another. As that fruit is produced, within each one of us as the Lord sees fit. We're trusting Him for that. But the focus has never been on the fruit. The focus is on the friendships between people and the reality of friendship and sonship with God. And I love that vision. I always love that vision. I love that it is different from other churches and different experiences. I love that it gives space for people to be authentic and to be themselves. It allows for failure and real growth. And it allows for relationships built on transparency on a day-to-day basis. So the plan for this meeting, as you probably read in the email, hopefully everybody read that email, was to present a new idea for how we might do church. How we might gather as a church and exist as a body, right? So we were going to shift meeting time. We were going to shift meeting day, maybe to a Wednesday. That's kind of what I was thinking. And we changed the format of what, quote, church looked like. Make it less Sunday morning church, more small group kind of discussion time. Really focusing on relationships, really what I think the church probably originally looked like and probably should look like now. And it would do a lot of things for us. It'd free up weekends, which is an incredible thought. It'd free up Sundays to do stuff with your families, to do stuff with this family over a couple of days because people already have time off. And that's really an exciting idea for me as a pastor to be involved in, something like that. It's backwards in a lot of ways to what we were supposed to be doing, planting a church. But I believe closer to what I hope for in a church now. But the more that I've wrestled with this thing and the more I've looked in myself and I've prayed, it really feels like that would be another step towards the inevitable for me as a pastor at this time. I got a call on Monday, Labor Day, after we had gone camping, and it was from a guy from a Vineyard Church in southern Indiana, and he was asking if we were still doing some of the School of Kingdom Ministry classes, and I explained that we weren't. But then he went on to talk about who he was and why he was calling, and he and his wife were super excited about planning a church, and that when they talked to Jay Pathak, who was the national director of the Vineyard, he said, yeah, we need 7 churches in Nashville. And so he said, man, Nashville, that must be the place. We were thinking Nashville, and you said we need 7? Let's do it. We're excited. So they're all excited about that. He's all chatty about it. And in that conversation, I observed myself trying to get off the phone as fast as I possibly could. And I didn't expect it, and I didn't know why. And so I had to ask myself, what was that about? Why would I not want to talk to this guy about church planting? Why didn't I want to share about how we had moved here and how we had planted a church or took over a church or whatever you want to call it, and we were loving what God was doing? And that's when I realized that I was tired. And I didn't have the enthusiasm and the energy anymore. And I don't have what's necessary to lead this church anymore in a way it needs to be led. It's pretty heart-wrenching for me to say that I don't believe I'm able to lead this family anymore. I believe in the mission of sharing God's grace with the world. I see the need for a gathering like this place, a place where you can belong, where I can belong. I love that you've called me your pastor and your friend, and I'm humbled that I've gotten to walk with you in that kind of a relationship. I love you. That hasn't changed, and it won't. But I feel stretched, and I feel thin, and I feel weary. I'm often depressed. I'm tired of rejection or being left. Sunday mornings have been the best time of the week for me, and often Sunday afternoons are the worst time of the week for me. Not because of you, but because of me and my own expectations and my failures, and it's just taken its toll. So I know I've not always been everything that some people have wanted or hoped for in a pastor, but I've always tried to be true to who I am. And so if I'm not feeling something, I don't want to fake it. I've said that so much. Had a conversation with a friend last week after last service, and she said the word she heard as she was driving home was unpretentious. And I just laughed and I smiled and I said, I have said for the last 4 years, I want to do away with pretension. I don't want to come to church and pretend anything. I don't want to come to church and try and have an environment that we have to do anything because that's the way it's done. I don't want that. I don't want to fake it. So if I'm not excited about something, I don't want to try and drum up what it takes to do it. There's probably a time when I was willing to do that, but I'm not anymore. So as hard as it is, and as much as I wish it was different, I'm officially stepping down as pastor from Capital Vineyard Community Church. It's difficult for everybody. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of, well, what's next for you and for us? I said in a sermon not too long ago, if this church didn't exist, I don't know where I'd go, and I stand by that. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what we're doing. I've talked with Jason Duncan, who is the area, well, he's the area leader, the Kentucky Vineyard Church leader. And he'd like to meet with everybody who is interested after church next week, September 24th, to talk about what might be next, how or if to call another pastor, and so on and all that stuff. So if you can, I hope you can be there for that, if you're interested. But next week's going to be our last week, Capital Vineyard. It'll be my last time preaching here as pastor. So watch out. I know it's short notice, but I don't want to drag it on. Probably a year overdue on this. We'll still be around. We aren't moving. Hopefully we'll still be friends. I know that looks different, but hopefully we'll still be friends. But I want you to know more than anything, we love you. You have supported us so incredibly with your time and with resources, money, energy, especially last year when Julia was sick and we didn't know what was going on. You've given, and you've loved us. We've loved you. And I still believe in those 3 words out there, Grace Family Mission. Yeah, that's all I got. The hardest part for me in this is not preaching, right? Because I'm sure that'll come out in other outlets because it's just kind of there, right? Ask my kids. Write a book on grace. I'm sure it's coming. It's actually started, but we'll see. We're going to rest. The hardest part is the relationships. You know, when you move, generally, I was talking with Julia, I think, when you move, and somebody says, hey, I interviewed for a job this week. Yeah, it's in California. Oh, wow. Well, that changes things. Or I applied for a job, and then, you know, a couple of weeks down the road, yeah, I've got an application, or I've got an interview coming up. Okay. Yeah, the interview went well. A couple of weeks go by, a month goes by, whatever. Hey, I got the job. When you start? Next month, right? That's a slow and it's a gradual process to kind of not the end of those relationships, but the change that happens in those relationships. And this feels so blunt. And that's the hardest part. So, don't think it's because we don't love you. We absolutely love you. Our lives have been these people, you, others, come and gone for whatever reason. And there's a certain level of feeling, not with me, whether you feel it or not, it exists within me of abandonment, of like, mic drop, see you later, hope all's well, I hope it goes well in the future. That's not what's happening, but it feels like that to me. And so, no, that's not the case. And like I said, we're not going anywhere. We're in Lawrenceburg. 15 minutes out, Lawrenceburg, way out there. I know. Some of y'all, it takes an hour to get to our house from yours. But you know where we live. That's not a threat. Yeah. And as I reflect on how I've seen y'all grow in different ways, just individuals, like, it's pretty amazing, and the friendships that have developed because of it. So, thanks for everything. Yeah, we love y'all.